Good morning, everyone. My name is Giovanna Laterza, and I will moderate this talk today, this webinar. The main aim actually of today's session, which is organized by the PPIT network, is to present the professional journey of researchers who decided to switch from the academia to the startup, either startup or entrepreneurship world. And this is the case actually for both of our speakers. We have Ambra Paterlini, who is actually a research and development manager at 3D Dynamics, a deep tech startups in the sector of 3D modeling. And then we have also the pleasure to have with us Guillaume Brachet, who is an entrepreneur in the biopharma sector. They both hold a PhD. Then welcome, Ambra and Guillaume, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation. I will then start with a simple first question for you both. Could you please present yourself and describe your role and your responsibilities at your current position? Then maybe let's start with Ambra.
Hi. Thanks. Hi. Thanks a lot, Giovanna, for the introduction and for the invitation as well. It's a pleasure to be here. So, as you well said, I'm a research and development project manager in 3D Dynamics. It's we work mainly with a patented process of additive manufacturing that has the specialty of working into a powder bed. You can see it on the website. I will not detail that much the technical process, but my role in the company is to create and manage research projects, both industrial with industrial partners, for example, customers, or just research projects that they are both from external industries, but also academic projects, so more deeply scientific projects, because we still want to grow and we still want to explore new application for this patent process, the dynamic molding. So basically, they choose my profile, my PhD as me, because they really want to pursue both scientific and industrial research for new products and for new application for the companies. So I mainly create, write, and manage projects from really the founding research to the conclusion of the project itself.
Thank you very much. Then I give the floor to Guillaume, who, as I said, he is here and he represents the entrepreneurship side. Welcome, Guillaume.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome to everybody. As for me, you said that both of our profiles were people who had switched from academia to the private sector. As a matter of fact, I haven't exactly switched. My contract has ended. That was in 2020, so I was forced to switch. That's the first thing, because it's responsible for what I do today. I have, let's say, I have had 4 societies so far, and the reason for that is that I have a micro society that I use to pay myself to, like, buy noodles and stuff, and that allows me to spend the rest of my time creating other societies with longer term projects. My micro society is aimed at doing like jobs, reading the science for people who don't have time. That helps me, but like just let's say have wages, sorts of wages, because it's a regular income. And I use another full-time part to try other projects that will make me a living for a longer period of time. today we're going to talk about the latest project. Maybe we're going to have a short talk about the ones that are currently ongoing or that have failed, because that might be more interesting than the ones that have succeeded. But the major project I'm running today is about creating a cure for a disease. And this has been big projects, both in terms of enthusiasm and of input in terms of money and time.
Thank you, Guillaume. This is interesting also because, as you said, you have several projects at the same time, and it's all a matter also of analyzing what is functioning and what's not functioning in order to invest as an entrepreneur in the project which fits the best with your profile and with your ambitions. You already said something interesting about the end, the career switch, which is, I think, a lot of PhDs can relate it to, which was kind of a forced switch by the end of the contract. And I would like, since we are mostly, our public is mostly composed by PhDs, and we will then share also this content with PhDs in our respective universities throughout the PEPIT network. I would like to take together, also for Amra, a step back in time with my next question, and I would like to know what were actually your immediate plans after completing your PhD. If you can also just say in which field you were active during the PhD, and if at the time have you considered different career paths outside academia. Was an evident choice, the startup path for your Ambra or the entrepreneurship path then for Guillaume? Maybe, just start with Ambra as last time.
Yes, thanks for the question. So actually, my PhD project was included into an European project into Horizon 2020 funding. It was called Doc 3D printing, and the cool part was to be in an environment of a very expanded network, because we were 14 PhD working together in all Europe. So that really helped to already have something to start for a network already in my field, which was additive manufacturing of ceramic for orthopedic application. The whole project was done for the research into the additive manufacturing of ceramics. So basically, at the end of my PhD, I started looking for a postdoc in the first time. It was the idea to once again postpone the final decision of life and say, just do a postdoc and then we'll see, as I did for all the previous studies. But I had some personal, let's say, limitation in terms of just a location of where I wanted to live, which was very important to me at the time, and I really wanted to stay in France. So this can limit sometimes, because especially for the academic path, it's quite important to move and to see other realities, other countries. Maybe even if I had the chance to travel a lot during my PhD, it wasn't not so easy to be limited in terms of my subject, which is not so that common, and also the fact that I wanted to stay in France. So I had this opportunity, thinking it was a sort of postdoc. Actually, it was a real contract. So the first interview I had for my actual job, before the interview, I thought it was a postdoc. Then I say, oh no, actually it's a full-time contract. I was, oh, okay, well, I like it. So it was maybe a bit random, I don't know, but this is how I decided to switch from a postdoc research to, because actually they sold it to me very well, and I'm not disappointed at the time, but it includes it included a lot of, and it includes still a lot of rich, really laboratory activity. I mean, that what was I was looking for in a postdoc. So it seemed to me a good compromise, and till present it is.
Thank you, Ambra, also for normalizing the fact that, especially in the second phase of the career, we have people and researchers, they also have to deal with also personal limitation, the choice, what to locate, which has, of course, an impact on the everyday life. And then I switch to Guillaume, just to ask you in respect of your entrepreneurship activity. When did you actually realize? It was after the end of your contract that you realized that the startup world, or the entrepreneurship world was interesting for you? It was like a progressive process, or did you have, so to say, an eye-opening moment for Guillaume?
The eye-opening moment was after I started, as a matter of fact, because I started out of the motivation to stay where I lived. I had my contract actually ending, and I'd sent lots and lots of resumes and motivation letters, some of which I wasn't very motivated about, throughout the whole France, Europe, wherever. But I wanted to stay where I lived because we had such a nice context for living here in Touraine, with friends, family. And as a matter of fact, I realized that I just didn't want to lose that. So my letters to people who could hire me not too far from my place stayed either without response or with negative responses, as many actually do. And I started my micro society to make a living out of it, and started actually enjoying it. It was pleasant, it was nice. It gave me some time for myself, for music, for sports, for my family. So after a while, I started sending less and less motivation letters, but I actually continued for a while because I felt like it was some kind of transition between the academic and a normal casual career in private biopharmaceutical company. Since I have a PharmD and a PhD, so I was a pharmacist. I worked as hospital as a medical biologist and a teacher and researcher. As a researcher, I worked on the field of biopharmaceuticals, but in general, having worked about antibody drug conjugates, about effector functions. So I was a bit of a patchwork of a scientist with no precise area of expertise, just bits and pieces of, let's say, field competences about clinical immunology, about biotechnology, about immunology, fundamental, that is. So actually, I was a bit of a, not exactly made tailored to be a researcher, even though I thought that's what I wanted, because I aimed at being an academic researcher, hospital practitioner and researcher. So that was my general aim. And after starting my first company, I progressively started enjoying it. And today I'm glad to say that it has been over maybe a month or two since I have sent my last application letter. So sometimes when it gets complicated, or when I feel like that job could suit me, I do send a letter, and then I regret almost as I click on send, because I feel like, no, I send a letter, but if they call me, I'll just say no, because I am really too happy with what I do today.
Thank you very much. Can you maybe just say a word about this first project to our audience? As you said, this is the first company that you launched, and it's basically, if I've understood it correctly, it's basically a company on scientific literature review, or?
Yeah, that is a fast way to put it. I have several types of implications with that. But it's about reading science for those who don't have time. That's the main point about it. What I do with that can be declined into scientific state of the art for regulatory filing for biopharmaceuticals, notably. So when you want to put a cure on the market, a treatment, you need to show that you studied the literature around it. So I do that for companies. I write scientific articles for companies who want to. I write synthesis for congresses. I go and search for insights for companies who want to innovate. So when they want to gain insight into how the field is as a matter of science, literature, an update or something like that. I train people from the global biopharmaceutical companies, and I train their visitors, their networks, the people who go down in the hospitals, either for clinical trials or for to sell the drugs to the hospitals. So I really, starting from the scientific expertise, from the biopharmaceutical expertise, I do almost everything that can be done around it. It really depends on the customer, on the client. So yeah, it's about scientific literature, but there's a lot more than that.
Thank you very much. And then I just wanted also to discuss about something you said before, and eventually also then have the same question for Ambra. How about, I mean, how about you have current projects, but you have mentioned also failed projects, so to say, because you had several ideas at the beginning, and how, I mean, how it is in, how do you deal also in the research and development then area with handling actually the new projects for the future? When do you understand that it's time to stop then? And if can you relate then this capacity also of analyzing to something that you have, to qualities and skills that you have developed during the PhDs, or it was something completely new for you?
I'm not sure that it's something that these soft skills that they are really something that you develop during PhD, because when you have your PhD, you have your essays to run, and you don't just say, okay, I'm stopping this because this is bad, this is not going anywhere. You end what you did, and then you, if it was negative results, you publish your negative results if you can. And then you start trying to turn around the problem to find the solution. But leaving a project behind because it feels like it's going nowhere, it's more of the not an art, but it's something rather that you feel more than something with solid basis. You feel like it's not going anywhere. You feel like you're losing your time with the project, and you have to understand when this feeling comes from your guts and when it's coming from your head. If it's something that's because you're in a bad mood, or because you're having a bad time with something that's getting on your nerves, or if it's something rational with obvious reasons to stop, which go far beyond how you feel on the day where you think that you need to stop everything. So I'm not going to talk about the ideas that I had when I started, because they were so bad that I'm really honestly not going to talk about them. I'm rather ashamed of them. The ideas actually come along the way. You start with something, thanks to Pépite actually, because I had followed a course of Pépite, and the people were saying to me, do what you're actually good at, do what you're actually good at, do what you can do what you know how to do. And I was like, I'm a teacher and researcher, I can do nothing. So what am I going to do? I can't do something about my thesis project because it was just bits and pieces. It was a patchwork, and that was going to lead me absolutely nowhere. So I was like, I can teach and search about stuff in the literature. So let's start with that. And after a while, I got contacted by a guy who wanted to start a company about his deep learning algorithm. And I was like, okay, that can't be worse than what I'm doing now. Let's start doing that too. And then I started working with a company that does the communication about science and scientific results and health and life sciences. And I went like, okay, I'm going to help them too, because I still have a bit of time left and I can do that too. And then the company about the deep learning algorithm stopped, not because of problems, issues with the technology or issues with the business. It was more issues in terms of entrepreneurship, because we were not matching very, very well in terms of what we wanted for the company for the future. It was discussions that were on the table every other day, and we realized that it meant that we were going somewhere different one from the other. We still have conversations. We're publishing a paper together at the moment, but it's just that I felt like the project would not go any further, that I was losing some time with that, because we were having the same conversations again and again, and it felt like an insoluble problem, a problem that couldn't be solved. So I preferred to leave it, frankly, and to refocus my time on something that I felt would be more constructive.
Thank you very much. And then the question, same question for Ambra, how do you actually organize from the research and development perspective? How do you decide in which project you want to invest? How do you decide when it's time to put a project aside, because you know that it's probably not going anywhere? It's a team decision. How do you handle this aspect in the research and development sector of your own organization?
Yeah, starting from the experience in the PhD, as you also mentioned that, and as Guillaume also mentioned it, actually in my case, it was very different, because I do have learned some of these soft skills during PhD, because due to the many partners involved in my PhD, and many just different locations, different countries where I had to do my tests, I had to be very organized myself, and I also had to completely reroute the subject, the whole subject of the PhD due to COVID, everything. due to the pandemic situation. I couldn't travel, I couldn't do my experiments. So, and obviously my supervisor weren't too much available because of the situation, not because of them. So this allowed me to take the time to really reorient the whole project. For example, just to give a concrete example, I did a whole study on modeling because I could do it with my PC at home, and this is what I could do in my experiment dedicated time of my PhD. So I added this whole part with formation I found by myself. Obviously it was funded by the PhD. Luckily they were supporting me all the time, but I had to face this during the PhD as well. Luckily it worked. And so I could have my degree. But once in the company, this was a question that I was asked for during the interviews, how do I face general technical problems in project at each level of the project, so from technical to administrative to and I had this example, and they appreciated it. But I don't know, I quite agree with Guillaume. There is a sort of feeling, and I really agree with the fact that you have to separate heart and mind when you want to follow or not a project, because there are projects that I thought I ideate by myself, and obviously I'm much more attached to them than to other projects that were just gave me from the company saying, this customer interested to this, figure out a project. If I I'm not really into the subject or into the domain, because there are also different domains from medical to aeronautics, very different between each other. It's very important to not to give it up just because you don't like it, and it's just learn this difference. What can work can also be something you're not familiar with, and you don't really like it because you prefer to do the project you are familiar with. But yeah, the feeling of not having anything back from it, long feedback, long time problems that repeat during time, that are repeated during time, are maybe a good signal that it must be completely revolutioned or abandoned. But it's not so easy. It's a real exercise.
And Ambra, can you then just very briefly explain us what Freedius Dynamics is actually doing? Because you just mentioned that you have several potential customers, so that the audience can have a glimpse of what is your activity.
Yeah, given the fact that the additive manufacturing was born to give free form design, and from this we have varied application. We basically, as I mentioned, we worked on silicon product, but I was so additive manufacturing of silicon, so elastomeric polymers. But I am a ceramist. I did my PhD on ceramics, so I was hired to explore this whole world by using the same technology, the same additive manufacturing technology, so dynamic mold. And while I was there, they said, but just take the whole material department and explore all the other materials. I'm a ceramist, and you give me metal. I'm like, well, who are you? You know. So it was very, very interesting to be forced to learn all these other words. Well, I'm a material engineer, so I had some courses, as many of us probably, but just to be challenged and to have to face different domains was at the same time very inspiring, but also challenging, as I said.
And maybe just a follow-up question after also what Guillaume said. On his side, he followed a PPT program, which are actually the relations of your ecosystem. You are in a deep tech startup. You are located in Lyon.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah. And did you do you have support from your local ecosystem?
That's a good question. Actually, we do have projects with the university, with Lyon, for example. And I actually was hired on specifically for a project which was funded by Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region, so a regional fund, and which involves the University of Lyon, Matthijs laboratory, quite good and big laboratories in the academic field, and also other small reality in the zone, because since it was a regional funding, we also make sure to have regional partners. Of course, it's included in the requirements. But we also have, for the moment, we have mostly national partnerships. But why not? We could expand to abroad as well. We also have projects with other universities in France. So the contact with the academic world is still an important reality for the startup, because we really do research. It's not like most of companies do development and abandon the air of R&D. We are really still into research as well, because we can afford it, because of the size of the company and the interest to grow.
Thank you very much. And then now a new question, this time for both of you. I would like to give an idea also to our public of your actually of your daily job and the project that you have developed in recent time. And can you maybe starting from Guillaume, can you tell me about a particularly innovative or challenging project you have worked on in this last year? You mentioned before the project focused on Parkinson's disease.
Yes, this is my, let's say, most important project so far. And at the moment, yet in my daily practice, I do absolutely nothing about it. I'm going to explain that in a moment.
Yeah, this would be really be helpful, I think, for the public.
I'm going to end with that. It'll be my conclusion why I'm not doing anything at all about it on a daily practice. So 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. That was not something I was expecting at 29 years old, and that's something that was a bit of a bad news. I think you'll agree on that. So actually, at the beginning, I was still on my academic area of research. So I was not into Parkinson's disease or neurology or anything like that. I was working on biopharmaceuticals. So it was way out of my scope. Then I started working for my own company and started working a lot because I needed to focus on something else than the disease. And luckily for me, my customers were quite happy with making me work 80 to 90 hours a week. So that helped a lot, thinking about something else. And then early in January 2022, so that was last year, there was a paper published on a molecular mechanism that starts some of these diseases, neuroevolutive, neurodegenerative disorders. And that gave me an idea for a treatment, something that came all the way back from my second year of pharmacy. So I was like, okay, that might be a good idea. So I studied the possibility, the hypothesis, and realized that it had been somehow tested and that there was good information that it would work. The only reason why the cure was not on the market was that it was an old molecule that was not patented anymore, and that it was not very well tolerated on a long-term treatment, especially for old people, which are the major part of Parkinson's disease patients. So that gave me the idea to actually rework on that possible treatment to make it both interesting for a biopharmaceutical company, namely have intellectual property on the molecule, and second, make it better tolerated for elderly people, or actually for anybody. So I started reworking on the molecule and the project and came out with an idea. We worked on the idea with a pharmacology professor from Marseille and ended up with an interesting idea, as also we felt at the moment. And I filed the how do you call that? It's not a patent. It's not a full right patent. It's a temporary patent, which gave me intellectual property for a year. It was filed on March the 7th of last year. So just 2 months after I had the idea, and started thinking about how I could develop it. But you need money to make experiments. And if you want to use other people's money, you have to show experiments results to find the money. So that's a bit of a problem because I had no experiments done, nor money. So I felt like I was a bit stuck. In France, we have a saying that goes like, if you don't have any petrol, you need ideas. So I actually started thinking about a sports challenge that would help me raise money and awareness about my problem, about my issue and the treatment, and rode against the flow on the river Loire, which is one of the longest river in France, for 15 days. to make people understand what it's like to be in a neurodegenerative disease, rowing against the flow. And when you stop, you actually go backwards. And physically, that's how it went. When I stopped rowing on the river, I really went backwards. So it was very long and very tedious. It was a bit of a task. But in the end, I raised the equivalent of 90,000 euros to start developing my treatment, which is actually being tested in preclinical assays in a private laboratory, and we'll have the results in a few weeks. So just to put it in a short sentence, that means that today I'm not working on it because it's being tested by other people in a private lab. This is why I day-to-day routine at the moment is more spending my time on the river and rowing than actually being focused on the assays themselves. And second, the making of a society, the fact that I'll be building a society around the project depends on the results of the experiments. So at the moment, this project, I've invested over 1,500 hours of my time inside it. I've invested over 90,000 euros, which are not mine, inside it. But the society doesn't even exist. It's just a project.
Yeah, this. Thank you very much for sharing this. And it's interesting that if I've understood it correctly, you were physically then on the river Loire doing by yourself the sport challenge.
Yes, that was my best idea for finding money.
Right. And then it was like a crowdfunding campaign or.
It was a crowdfunding campaign, but also it helped me have some media, some press articles, and
media
finally
coverage.
Raising help from the company that actually runs the assays, and then help from other laboratories, other biopharmaceutical companies, just visibility, which was another aspect of the project.
Thank you very much. And we have in the chat, actually we have, thank you, Christelle, she just put in the chat the Parkinson-sur-Loire link. And then I'll just, a similar question to Ambra. What about an innovative or challenging project that you have developed with the free-use dynamics during or on this last year of work?
Yeah. Well, obviously, most of things I do are confidential, and one day my bosses could see this video, so I have to be like careful. But for example, I could talk about the original project that was funded because it's already funded and it's already started. So it is ongoing, and it consists of the development and production of a medical device, which consists of an orthopedic implant for the craniomaxillofacial area. Okay. So basically, I wasn't really aware because I'm mostly on the scientific research, but most of the time it's not really representing what is really happening in the world. Like we say, we are capable of printing everything. Like 3D printing is so easy access at the moment, but to really use it, especially in the medical field, you have to overcome to thousands of ISO standards and rules that create a quite big gap between what is feasible technically and what is, for example, implantable in a patient. So I had to face this gap for the first time in the company here, and this project was made for this, it's actually called R&D Booster, and it really helps the startup that have a product to put it on the market, especially when it involves all of these regulatory steps, the quality and the ISO regulation for medical devices. So basically, when we involved 3 surgeons in the project to make sure to have a direct contact with the field, with the hospital, and with what is currently been doing, what they are currently been doing in the hospital for patients. And they told us that despite we have several options in the literature, like 3D printing of titanium, for example, or 3D printing of some biocompatible polymers or bioresorbable implants. Actually, what is being doing in Lyon nowadays, for example, is still to cut bones from other side of the body and put it in the mandibular bone. And I was like, it's not possible. Why do you do this? It's very dangerous for the patient. It involves true surgery because you have to take it's called bone graft. So you have to take the graft part from another side, and you generate a weakness in the other surgery site. But it's still the most common practical because of most of the implants at a research level that have been analyzed or even published or even evaluated are not gone until the marketability and the regulatory step. So basically, this project consists of create customized ceramic implants, and we are already working on all the regulatory stuff. And when I saw what is it, I understood why it hasn't been done from all the other studies. But it's interesting to have so close application and involving medical devices.
Thank you, Ambra. We have a question also for you from the audience, and actually it's about the daily job of a research and development manager. Do you need holding this position to invest the time also in the financial side? Do you need to evaluate the value of the research? I just read the question when it is still nascent, and how involved or how much of your time do you spend on payback analysis like this?
Yeah, that's very interesting because it's something I didn't know at all when I arrived. But into the funding request, like the dossier, like the funding project proposal, we had to include all of the financial part, because obviously the region want to know how much do you want. So we had to do all of these studies in terms of how much it will cost to us and how much will we be able to sell the implant once it's done. I had a lot of help from our CEO, from all of the administration team, but it consists of 2 persons. Like, we are very small, so basically it also allowed me to do a lot of it by my own. It was very interesting because it's another aspect that when you're doing your PhD you don't consider at all, but obviously it's a whole part of it.
And maybe just a similar question to Guillaume, how because you mentioned the fact that you had at the beginning several projects, and you are still actually developing parallel projects with different strategies. How have you found a financial balance? How do you organize your daily activity? You mentioned that for the Parkinson's disease, you are actually now in standby because you're waiting the results. Then you are focusing mostly on your micro entreprise, your micro company in scientific literature right now. How do you organize yourself in order to reach a convenient financial balance for yourselves?
That's a very complicated and very simple question at the same time. I have very few possibility to calculate, to choose anything about that. The fact is that my customers most of the time ask me for my services, around October to December. So during these 3 months, I work almost day and night every day with my collaborator. We used to have snacks around 3 to 5 a.m. together in front of Zoom with salami and, having dinner early in the morning whilst we were still working. I rose up to weeks lasting over 100 hours for several months in a row. So during October to December, I work because my customers ask for some work and I can't allow myself to say no to anything. Because then from January down to September, there's very less work going on. So that means that I have my holiday lasting almost 8 months if I want. But on the other hand, I use that time to start projects that need some investment in terms of time and or money. So yeah, that's the way it works. But it's not something I decided. It's just the way my market works.
And it's, I mean, because it's a season, it's just up to you since you want to work more in these months, or there's this seasonality of the request.
It's a seasonality because that's something weird about it. The biopharmaceutical industries most of the time think that communicating and or researching for fundamental insights is something that's rather a side of their routine.
Okay.
So it's something that they will postpone until they're sure that they have some money to do it. And then during the month of September, October, they start thinking, okay, we have this money left from the year. What should we do with it? Oh yeah, we've been talking about researching some insights from January, but at that time we were not sure that we'd have some money left, so we postponed that. Now's the time because we're sure that we have let's say 30K left, and we need to use them before next year, to spend them before next year. So we need to have someone search something for us, like in the 2 next months, and it has to be done before the end of the year so that we can use the financial line before December the 31st.
Thank you very much. I had no idea since I'm not.
Me neither.
And
I
then
learned it the hard way.
We have actually a question from Alice. She thanks both of you. And then first a question to Guillaume, which is quite a difficult one. How do you make yourself known to clients, actually?
Well, at first I had some customers that I activated through the academic system. As a researcher in the University of Tours, we were actually doing some courses for biopharmaceutical companies on behalf of the university. So I just sent emails when I left the uni saying, hi, it's Guillaume. I came a few times at your company to train your people. I'm going freelance and still doing that. So if you're interested, please call me and not the university. And some of them actually came back to me saying, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, why not? You're a micro company. That's a bit boring because it's a bit complicated for us, but still we're going to try it for once and then see. And the thing is, it's hard reaching out to biopharmaceutical companies, but when you work for them and you do your best and it works for them, then they call you back and they call you back and they call you back. And it's a very interesting feature of these customers is that when you have a commercial relationship that's going well, it goes on for ages. And then afterwards, they speak from one to another, and yeah, it's sort of what we call bouche à oreille in French, but I don't know how you call that in English, like just by spreading the word.
Thank you very much. And then the second question to Ambra, did you get any formal training for project management, or do you organize your work similar to what you have done during your PhD? We don't hear you anymore, Ambra. You are mute.
Yeah, course, classical issue. I finally found the question and answer panel, so I could read the previous question. Maybe I didn't answer completely to all, but do not hesitate to be back to me if there are different questions, since our talk is almost done. But concerning Ali's question, I didn't have a formal training, meaning an external training onto project management, because when I was hired, I was a bit late I mean, I had to finish my PhD and I started directly, but they wait for me because actually they wanted to hire a person in November, because we had a deadline for this project that I talked to you about, the position in February. So basically when I arrived, we were at 2 weeks to the deadline. It was 2 intense weeks, but I knew because we had already discussed it during the interview, and I had already started looking for something during the end of my PhD. And so I was basically thrown into the project writing, which is a very big part, for my experience, for my personal point of view, of the project management. Because once you wrote a project proposal, for example, you have to put everything into it. Like, you have to have foreseen every part of it, which means you have to have the complete Gantt of the project, all the work packages, all the structure of the project must be on it. So this for me is a big part of the project management, really the writing of the proposal and the giving consistency, like in putting to word what your idea is. And then obviously you start the project and you have to manage more people than words. This, I don't know, it's something I think in common life we already, most of us do and don't even know. Maybe, I don't know, it was something more natural to me. But what I will do, for example, since medical device project is a whole other history, is a formal training on risk analysis, for example, because this is something very delicate for medical devices application, especially of 2 and 3 class 2 and class 3. So this is something which is foreseen and it will be mandatory. Concerning project management, at the end, my proposal were accepted. So I guess my bosses said, it's okay, she can do it, it's done. But obviously I was helped a lot during the first, I would say 4 to 6 months into the company.
Thank you very much. And as you said, actually, time is running out. I would love to ask you a last question for Guillaume and for Ambra, for both of you. What will be actually your advice for a PhD or a postdoc who is thinking about either developing an entrepreneurial idea as Guillaume, or joining a deep tech startup as you did, Ambra? Maybe starting from Guillaume.
I'm going to take the freedom to actually give 2 advices.
Of course.
First one would be that it's not about your scientific background. It doesn't have to be about your scientific background. Your soft skills are maybe more important than what you learned during your PhD. And the second is, if you think of trying entrepreneurship, just do so. You won't know if it's for you, if it's something that's right for you until you try.
Thank you very much. And then for you, Ambra, do you think how can you give some advices to people who are thinking about joining a deep tech startup?
I will give an advice that a person that I estimate a lot gave to me when she's a professor and she was my first internship tutor. So I'm still in contact with her, and when I had this opportunity, I contacted her and I said, but I wanted a postdoc, what am I doing here? And she said, if you feel it, if you think what you heard was corresponding to what you were looking for, who cares about doing a postdoc or or academic path, you want to do research, you want to be in the lab, and you want projects, you want to put your hands on what you do. So seems good for you. Like, don't stay too fixed with your scheme and with classical path. Like, everything could be rewritten, and you can also always change your mind later. Don't be stressed about something like age or other parameters of this kind that are not really important according to me, and to my experience.
Thank you very much. And I'll take just the last minute, because I've seen that there's another question in the chat about actually the role. I work for PEPIT at University of Strasbourg, but we are working all together, the entrepreneurship centers all around France. So we have a working group on PhDs, PEPIT for PhDs, and then that's a good information for Rania. Rania Arar, or he or she, asking if we can help get you started with an entrepreneurial project. This is basically what the role of the PEPIT centers. Then please contact your local PEPIT centers, and this is our job, to help you in the very first phase of the development of your entrepreneurial project. Then don't hesitate to contact your local PEPIT. Thank you very much, then, to both of you for your time and for sharing your experience with no filter with us. I hope that this was also useful for our audience. Thank you. Do you want to add anything from your side, or?
Well, I'll be available if there's any other questions, so don't hesitate to ask them afterwards. And yeah, thank you very much for having us here.
Yeah, same for me. Thank you very much, Giovanna. And I like to discuss, and especially I think that the end of the PhD, the whole duration of the PhD, it's a delicate phase where we're all a bit maybe lost. So it's very important to share it, and to share opinions and life paths. So thanks for what you are doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.